Hello everyone, I'm Camila Russo, the author of The Infinite Machine and the founder of the Defiant, a content platform focusing on decentralized finance. Thank you so much, EDCON, for having me. So as I mentioned, I'm the author of The Infinite Machine, the first book on the history of Ethereum. And today I'm going to tell you some of the lessons I learned in the 2-year process that was writing this book. So as with any big project, the first step in actually writing a book is deciding to do it. And, this was end of 2017. There had just been a bull market or a big crypto boom. And I had been covering the space for Bloomberg News throughout that whole year. I had briefly covered, written about Bitcoin in 2013. But it was really that year that I started focusing on crypto. So I had the idea of writing the first book on the history of Ethereum. And there were many reasons why I shouldn't have written the book. There had been other journalists covering the space for longer than I had. I didn't have the technical knowledge to understand the inner workings of Ethereum. I had never even talked to Vitalik. But still, I really knew this was a great opportunity to tell a big story. And I knew I was able to do it. I was one of the few. As for my credentials, I was one of the few journalists at a big mainstream financial organization covering crypto. This space was so new that it wasn't like there were tons of veteran journalists covering it anyways. And I had learned about financial markets and how to use a Bloomberg terminal. So I thought, I can figure out how Ethereum works. And finally, nobody had done it. So why shouldn't I? So I made the jump. I contacted an agent. I worked on my pitch. I sent it out to a bunch of publishers. And then one day I get this email from my agent in all caps saying that one of the editors at HarperCollins liked my book proposal. And so, I think Vitalik had maybe a similar moment. Obviously with a much bigger result than just a book. When he had gone in this world Bitcoin tour, following the different teams building around Bitcoin. And he had come up with an idea for a generalized smart contracts platform and pitched it to mastered coin and colored coins. But, these teams said that they didn't want to spend time building it out. Vitalik thought, why shouldn't I do it? So he said, screw it, I'll do it myself. And I think that's just a great motto to have in life. Screw it, I'll do it myself. So when I was first researching the book, one of the first things that struck me was how Vitalik, at 19 years old, with no college degree or even work experience other than writing articles about Bitcoin, had convinced people from all over the world to join him in building Ethereum, with the vague idea that they'd get crypto at some point, but there was no salary, no equity stake, no contracts, nothing. It was, this poker player from Romania, a former hedge fund manager, an entrepreneur in Toronto, a mathematician in Colorado, hackers, designers, marketers, people who literally dropped everything, broke up with girlfriends, gave away pets, left jobs, just, to go build Ethereum. And here are many of them in the house in Miami when the project first started. And they were all there from all walks of life, different experiences. And they were there because they were excited about the idea that Vitalik laid out in his white paper. They were able to temporarily forget about their differences and, just rally around this new concept. So sure, later they fought, some parted ways. Most of them aren't part of Ethereum today. But it was this power of an idea to move people what really got Ethereum started. So another lesson is that heroes are, the most important part of stories. If you want to tell a story like I wanted to tell it, which was in this kind of novel type of way, I wanted it to be a nonfiction book that really read like fiction, with characters and a plot and colorful situations. So it was important to find a hero to drive action, and so people could relate to what was going on rather than just be a list of events and facts that happened. So Vitalik is obviously an important part of the Ethereum history, and he's an important part of the book. And here he is on the day that the Ethereum mainnet launched. For a moment, I thought, what if I tell the Ethereum story entirely through Vitalik? So that it's kind of like a biography, but also a way to tell the story of the second biggest cryptocurrency. And others have done this too successfully. For example, with the story of Tesla, with the story of Facebook. But when you zoom out from that picture, that this is the very same room on the very same day, the day that the Ethereum mainnet launched. And you can see there were many other people in the room. So in this case, I realized one hero isn't enough. If I had focused on just Vitalik, many pieces of the Ethereum history would have been missing because so many other people were key. So I ended up using not one hero, but many different heroes to tell the Ethereum story. Okay, so when I was a reporter at Bloomberg, I lived by market charts. It's what I did all day, every day. I looked at charts and used them to tell stories and to kind of decipher what was going on in the world. But an important lesson I learned with Infinite Machine is that charts, well, they're nice because they seem so concrete and irrefutable. They're not the full picture. So here's a little anecdote. On the day I went to quit my job at Bloomberg in early 2019, one of my colleagues there in the Markets Live team, I was part of this blog that told real life markets, like real-time market commentary. And most of the people in the team were like very senior reporters and former like asset managers. And one of my colleagues, a diehard crypto skeptic, like many at Bloomberg, asked me how my book was going. And he pulled up the Ether chart. And it wasn't a pretty picture. So this is what Ether was doing in 2019. It had taken a huge dive. It had gone to double digits, I think, end of 2018. It really looked like Ethereum was dying. And so he said, if this is what ETH is doing after you said you're writing a book about it, don't ever write a book about me. So yeah, it was a little bit, passive aggressive, or I don't know, but I laughed it off. And I've been asked this question of, during the bull market, I was mostly writing the book, or I wrote most of the book during the bull market. But, as the price of ETH was slumping, I was following the Ethereum community around, going to hackathons, going to conferences. I, went to Prague, Japan, Toronto, Denver, San Francisco, Buenos Aires. I really kind of did my best to immerse myself in the community and watch what was actually going on. And what I saw in these hackathons and conferences and meetups is that all of the activity is that activity and growth just had kept accelerating since the boom days. And I was seeing more and more concrete progress happening on Ethereum than ever before, even with the price going down. So, of course, I wasn't fazed by my colleagues' comments or others, or I wasn't concerned with the Ether chart. And just like watching the actual activity and all the building that was happening in the Ethereum community made me keep my enthusiasm for the book I was writing throughout the entire process. So the lesson here is, you need to actually sometimes be in the trenches to find out really what's going on, and not just look at charts from your Bloomberg terminal. And then finally, a lesson from this process is that the toughest part really wasn't the research, the interviews, getting the right sources, crafting the outline, writing out 300 pages, and then editing them over and over again. That was super tough. But what kept me awake at night was the idea of letting this go. My book had been living in my computer and read by myself, my editor, and family members I could count with one hand. And suddenly it was about to be released to the world and able to be read by anyone and criticized by anyone and taken apart. And it was really terrifying. I really, it was hard for me to sleep in the nights leading up to the launch. And I think for Ethereans, it must have been similar, I guess, leading up to the launch of the network. They had been working on Ethereum for over a year. And when the network went live, suddenly anyone could start building on it, but also trying to poke holes on it, figuring out ways to attack it and hack it. And of course, they tried with the Shanghai attacks when the network underwent attacks for over a month, and hackers had to scramble to repel them. Of course, the DAO is the big example. Not obviously wasn't hacked to Ethereum itself, but like to the biggest project at the time. But Ethereum withstood all the attacks and booms and busts so far. As for the book, I'm lucky that it doesn't need to hold hundreds of millions in smart contracts, luring potential attackers. But it does hold a wealth of stories, I hope, that people can appreciate. They can't hack the book, but they can criticize it and tear it apart. But I've learned to be okay with that. Now the book is for everyone to read and to make their own opinions. It's not in my hands anymore. This has been the hardest lesson to learn. But so far, I couldn't be happier with the outcome and the reception so far. So yeah, writing this book was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, but also the most rewarding. Thank you all Ethereans for welcoming me into your community. It's been, really a pleasure to research, to talk with so many of you, to learn about your colorful, idealistic, crazy culture. And yeah, I really hope that you enjoy my take on Ethereum's history. Thanks again, EDCON, for having me, and go get your copy.